So I'm just going to address before we get started that I am nursing a little bit of a cold. And yes, even moms get sick. And let me tell you, everything kind of grinds to a halt when you get sick. But so like you push through, and that's probably why I still don't feel good, because I've still been like running my household and raising my children. But I am a little congested today, a little nasally, if you will, and I apologize. That paired with my lazy speech and my Chicago accent, we are in for a bumpy, fun ride. So here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the final episode in the series on surveys. We're going to talk about manager surveys. And if you're like, the fourth, I thought there was three: ENPS, pulse surveys, engagement surveys. You're right. I made this one up because that's what we're doing over here in the land where I have not found most HR advice to be helpful or correct. And if 70% of disengagement is caused by the manager, we would be a little goofy not to like double click into like, okay, exactly what's going on over there. But I have a way to do it that I've designed that causes very little trauma to both the managers and your employees, and gets everyone to see it as a good thing and as a growth opportunity and an investment that you're making in everyone's career. So I know this sounds like a lot of surveys. We've now gone through this is the fourth format, like I just said, but I have a whole survey cadence. That will probably be next week's episode, where we're going to talk about it is totally possible to send this many surveys when you do it correctly. I have a cadence that follows a pattern that's easily repeatable for you. And I've got a playbook that I will put in the show notes of that episode. That shows you when you send, what questions you ask, and what to do when you get the information back and how to think about it. So we've said before that surveys are the love language of your company, and you have to get great at this if you're going to sleep at night, knowing what you're working on and making sure it has the greatest possible chance for impact, so that you're not shipping a recognition program and it flops because employees aren't ready for that. And if you don't remember my whole spiel on that, check out the episode on the employee hierarchy of needs. Okay, so the manager survey. So if let's just say, like at a high level, your cadence is an engagement survey once a year, a manager survey once a year, so like 6 months after that, and I'll tell you the questions you should ask. But then you do pulse surveys in between those months to double click on what you learned in the engagement survey or what you learned from the manager survey, and you're doing ENPS quarterly. And if you're worried about survey fatigue doesn't exist. Because as long as employees see effort and see you owning like, yeah, thanks for taking the survey. This is what we learned. This is what we're hoping to learn more about in the next survey. You could send me a survey every 10 minutes if someone actually did something with it. But most of my career, the poor HR team, now come to find out, was horribly understaffed and like under-resourced. And it was just unrealistic for them to have that much time to be sending that volume of surveys. If you don't have a properly staffed team, not sending surveys is like flying a plane with no windshield, and not the kind that flies itself. We're talking like a real commercial airplane with no windshield. That sounds like a bad idea. You know, that metaphor might not make sense, so don't come for me on LinkedIn. I'm sure planes kind of do fly themselves and the pilots just land them, but still, don't you want a pilot that can see what they're doing when they're landing or taking off? I know I do. So the manager survey, again, managers are what cause 70% of the disengagement that causes your company to be unproductive, for turnover to happen, people to be talking about their drama and their issues on company time, which costs you money. So if your engagement survey is asking Gallup's Q12, refer to that episode if you haven't listened to that, then your manager survey just digs a little bit deeper into like a day in the life for both the manager and the employee. And let's be super clear here too, because I've been a manager who was not equipped. We've all had a bad manager, okay? I've been a manager who was not equipped, and I took the time in my career to read a bunch of books to get better, but this is not meant to be like all managers suck and all managers, belong in HE double hockey sticks. But I know we've all had a bad manager who traumatized us, and so we kind of assume that like, well, if you're making more money and if you have more responsibility than me, then why can't you get it together? And the answer is because a lot of managers haven't received any training. And this survey that you're going to send is going to help you inform what are the gaps we have with our managers and where are the areas we need to focus to teach them to have the skills to not show up as their angry dad or their avoidant mother that they had in childhood, because that's what tends to happen too. So when you're sending this survey. It is going to be in two formats. You have one version that you will send to managers where they're rating themselves. And then you have a version that's written very similarly to employees where they're rating their managers. So for example, the questions are eerily similar. The version you would send your managers says things like, I'm confident in my ability to clearly communicate expectations to my team. And then on the employee version, it would say, my manager clearly communicates expectations to me and the team. So I have a list of 9 questions that you could or should ask. I can put a little template for you. I'll just put a teeny tiny little manager survey playbook that I have in my Community Engagement Academy, but I'll make sure you have access to this template. But let me give you a few more examples of what the flip and the flop version of this survey is. So the next one is for the managers. I regularly ask my team for feedback on how I can better support them. The employee version would say, my manager regularly asks for feedback on how they can better support me. The manager version would say, my leadership style inspires my team to achieve their goals. The employee version, see where this is going? My manager's leadership style helps me to feel motivated to achieve my goals. So what I've done across the 9 questions is really address all of the ways that I, as an employee and as a manager, experienced someone falling short. And it catches everything from how scary the manager can possibly sometimes be when things don't go as planned, or how clear they communicate, or how much they have empathy toward what people's strengths are, or again, when things go bad, how do they show up? How do they navigate conflict or discuss growth opportunities and motivate? Those are the things against the employee hierarchy of needs that we all need to feel in order to find meaning in our work and feel like this is a good use of our time. In the playbook that I will link into the show notes, I have a way to explain that you're rolling out the survey to everyone that's very not scary. It's a way of telling employees, hey, we invest in our managers because that's an investment in you too. And we want everyone to feel equipped to do their best work, yada, yada. And then you pull your managers aside and you're like, hey, literally nobody's perfect. And we invest in your training, all of you. And we want to make sure that you feel like you've had time and attention that it takes for you to be a great manager, because we know a lot of companies don't train on this. So we expect to get negative feedback. It means that your team loves you, actually deep down, like they want to see you get better. They may have gaps that they're feeling that you would have no idea existed. And you could continue on this path of the way you're managing and not realize that your team is not as productive or engaged as they could be. So it's just a really important litmus test to keep everyone feeling like there's accountability in your workplace. And yeah, we all have that employee that goes buck wild in the surveys and nothing ever makes them happy. But when you have a very clear pattern against one team, even though these surveys are anonymous, depending on the platform you use to deploy it, you can pretty quickly see if you have a toxic manager that you didn't realize needs a lot of coaching. And that person may not realize that they're toxic. They may think they're doing a great job. So if you don't go into these dark, scary places, you're not going to get the dark, scary answers that are actually very fixable once you look at it from a business sense. Nobody shows up fully equipped to lead a team. It is very difficult. There's no go to manager school type training. And so of course, there's going to be people who completely fall apart and say, my manager's a jerk, or my manager is always late to meetings and that upsets me. And your manager who gets those responses might be like, I have too much on my plate, to which all of that can be adjusted. A lot of managers try to do the individual work, individual contributor, and lead a team, and I've just not seen that go very well. Managers need enough time and space to foster relationships on the team. I really believe that no manager can manage more than 9 people, because that's 9 different personalities and working styles and goals and career aspirations, tendencies, strengths, weaknesses. I mean, it's like having 9 children, and that time is meant to be spent mentoring and guiding and bringing out the best in everyone and doing strategy work. Like, where's the team headed? Your managers should never be boots on the ground doing your marketing campaigns, or managers can do that on accident because they know they're not managing well and they want to get some wins and just show that they're good at something. But managers' time is best spent making sure those in their care are being well taken care of. And it doesn't mean coddling. It means this person has great soft skills to get through to the most difficult employee, is well equipped to have those hard conversations when someone's interrupting people in meetings or they're constantly missing deadlines. You need your managers skilled and trained and have the mental load available to catch those things happening and have those discussions properly. So this 4th format, the manager survey, I'm not saying you have to do it. But I am saying a lot of what's causing your engagement surveys to be like, oh my God, we scored bad on everything. This survey format sends a clear message that you take very seriously the employee experience, and that's a subconscious thought you want your people feeling. This is a way to hold everyone accountable, but mostly the company accountable to making sure that managers are getting the training that they need. They're having investments made and making sure they have the soft skills to lead up teams that are able to do their best work. And that's what makes the company more money and gets people to stay and work there for a long time doing their best work. So in the show notes, I'll give you my playbook for how to send this survey format. If you've been listening to the other episodes like ENPS and engagement and the pulse survey, I have other playbooks in my community that tell you exactly what to do and how to think about the questions. And, surveys can feel really confusing until you have these playbooks. And I was so happy to make them. But if you're looking for the rest of the content, we'd love to have you in the Engagement Academy community. And you can talk to me and all your new HR friends, and we'd love to meet you and talk it through with you. So until then, check out the show notes for more content, and thank you so much for listening. If you're brave enough to send this manager survey format, I promise you this is the one that's really going to get to the root of a lot of the toxic issues that you would have no idea is unfolding because you are in HR land doing all the other amazing back house things that no one ever sees and goes very much unthanked. So allow me to thank you, because I get it now and I see it and I appreciate you, and so do your employees. And especially with this survey format, you're really going to get to the root and the guts and the gore of what is it going to take to get this company to get back on the right track. And this is 100% a format worth considering sending. So thank you for listening. We'll talk about cadence next week. And then after that, my friend Nahed is coming on. He's got a podcast called Organized Chaos, and he's become my favorite, like yin and yang to my show. He's got a whole different vibe, but he's got very helpful stuff to say too. So he'll be on in 2 more weeks. Until then, thanks for listening. I see you. I see how hard you work, and I see how much you care, and I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.